Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Monday going into week 10 of the college football season. Rob Browne broadcasting live from Mallory's Kitchen here in Atlanta. Sidelines every Monday through Saturday here with you, 2 hours each day. Check us out, www.sidelines.live always, or if you missed the show, go to 680thefan.com, the podcast park in Atlanta. Kicks 96.3 in Alexander City, Lake Martin, Alabama, part of the Radio Alabama group. Lot to talk about over the weekend. The carnage still being sifted through to see what happened and what were the takeaways from the weekend. Gordon Ford's going to join us from Memphis, the fireman. Who's on the fire watch, who's walking the Green Mile or about to walk the Green Mile, getting ready for that. Jimmy Hodge back up in Chicago. We'll be joined in the second segment by Doug Dean in Birmingham. Top of hour number 2, Matt Dean, head back over in Memphis, joins us, talking college football. You know, his son is on the staff out there at Oregon. Give us a little bit of insight, a lot of insight into what's going on out there with Bo Nix. Had another big day this past weekend. And I was at the Auburn game. That's what you want to call it. Saturday, Arkansas beats Auburn 41-27. And anyway, there's a lot to talk about. We've got, look, Tennessee laid the wood to Kentucky. This Tennessee team is really good. Oh, they don't have much of a defense. Well, I thought it'd be close for a quarter and a half. And I thought Tennessee would win something like 38-17, whatever. They won 44-6. It was close in the first quarter, 7-6. But this is a good Tennessee team. Those uniforms, it look like the Halloween Oreos. I love them, man. They're cool. I mean, they're cool for Halloween. But I want to see them get back to the big orange. And now they go on the road this weekend. They'll have to wear their visiting whites. Maybe they can wear the orange pants. But Tennessee's got some cool uniforms, and they are having a lot of fun. Give us a follow on Twitter at sidelines_live. Follow us. We'll be glad to follow you. And if you want to be a Patreon sponsor, check out the Patreon app on the sidelines.live app. Gordon, on Fire Watch, you're up there in the tower looking out over the horizon. I think you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, okay. But right now, from what you saw this past weekend, Ole Miss goes on the road, gets a nice win, 31-28 at Texas A&M. Everybody out there just there's nothing they can do, really. They've got to they've got. Where'd you go, Gordon? Can't see you.
I'm here.
Your thing's pointing up, and yeah, there you go. But there's nothing they can do at Texas A&M. Nobody is going to let $85 million just walk out the door. Well, I would say this isn't the federal government, but it's beginning to look a lot like Washington. The money, and you lose all your leverage when you give someone this kind of contract. But anyway, Ole Miss gets the win. Lane Kiffin, this guy's having fun. And the Rebels rebounded after getting drubbed at LSU. Now they are alive, and November 12th, they've got Alabama coming to town a week after Alabama plays at LSU. That's a tough stretch for Alabama. But let's talk about your Rebels and that win and the takeaways.
Well, one of the things, the takeaways were they put some bigger bodies up front, Ivy, Piggies, some of those guys, and stopped the run. Achan, the running back for A&M, kind of ran all over them there for a while, and their new quarterback Connor, I think his name Whitechap, he played incredible. And I can tell you right now, I see why he's a 5-star recruit. But the biggest to me, one of the takeaways of the game was the post game, and when they the announcers asked Kiffin about the game, and he said some stuff. There's our team, blah, blah, blah. And he says, it's tough. He says, man, we did a great job against their 5-star recruits. And, I thought that was kind of funny. So then they on and on said, well, what are you going to wear for Halloween? And he looks at the announcer and says, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to call Jimbo and I'm going to get him to get me a Joker costume. And you know where all this, started, don't you? It started early in the year when recruiting was going on.
Yeah.
And Saban and Kiffin had called them, pretty much said that A&M was cheating with the NIL. Well, what happened is that Jimbo retaliated and called them a bunch of clowns. And that's where the feedback came back, for him sending those gestures towards Jimbo. But I think Ole Miss, they played better defensively. They're running the ball well. They got Zach Evans in there. Deshaun Judkins is an incredible runner. I mean, especially for a freshman. And, you talk about Auburn, Rob. Auburn didn't even recruit him.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's one of the best running backs in the country.
Well, I'll tell you what I did find out. Auburn told Keyshawn Judkins out of Park Crossing, about 35 miles from Auburn's campus, hold tight. We're waiting on one other guy, and if he doesn't come, we'll offer you. That's why Auburn's 3-5. This guy, our friend Yancey Porter thinks that when they write the book about Nick Saban's career at Alabama, after he's won, every number of many games he's going to win, they're going to say, who's the one player that you regret in state or whatever that you didn't sign? And Yancey's adamant that it's going to be Keyshawn Judkins. He's really good. But the best thing about Ole Miss, Gordon, is they just went on the road at night in a hostile environment and won. After what happened the week before, they didn't let that game beat them 2 weeks in a row.
Well, I don't have A&M's remaining schedule on here. And I know what are they 3-5 right now? Well, I think they beat Missouri, they beat Florida. And then who else do they play? I'm missing somebody.
You're talking
Auburn.
about
Auburn. So those are all, to me, 3 winnable games, and they still have a chance to finish 6-6 or 7-5.
LSU, I don't think so.
No, they don't. They
No.
finished 6-6. Yeah.
That's going to be a stretch, though, but I was surprised at how well and how much a fight they played with on Saturday. I thought they might just, call it a season, but Wigman was very good and showed he's probably their quarterback of the future. So there were some positive signs, but again, all is far from well at A&M for sure.
Tell me this, Jimmy, since we're all on here. What happens if he goes 5-7? They can't fire him. The announcers made that perfectly clear. Nobody's going to come up with $85 million. Does he make massive staff changes, or does he fire the offensive coordinator? What does he do?
Well, despite what the titles are, he's the offensive coordinator, so he can't fire himself, and he's calling the plays. So nothing's going to happen there. But yeah, there are going to be multiple staff changes because that's what you do when the hounds are over you and they smell the scent. You've got to make changes there, and then eventually you start to run out of people to blame other than yourself. So I think that's going to be the routine. But I think, though, a lot of these 5-star freshmen, just by getting game experience by next year, they're going to be a lot better. But yeah, I found it interesting, though, with Lane's post-game comments when he said, 390 yards rushing against a bunch of 5-stars. That's pretty good. You could tell he enjoyed that. And just like Lane's comments at SEC Media Days, I mean, he's just great in that setting, and but still, Ole Miss has problems defensively that concern me. And they've got to try to figure it out in a hurry because they got depth, they got size. It seems they've got athleticism, but for some reason, they're still not functioning as a unit defensively in a way that you would hope for. And with their schedule being backloaded as it is, they still got some challenges ahead.
Well, a lot. But I like what you said, Jimmy, about A&M. These guys, they're playing a lot of the young guys. They're getting a lot of valuable game experience. And when you go into next season, you look at the stat that Stat Tiger shows, number of guys on the team that have played in 20 games. a number of guys that have played in 30 games, a number of guys that have started in 20 or 30 games. That experience pays off. There's a lot of talent. What you don't know is the temperature in that locker room. You got undisciplined players doing stupid stuff before games, and everybody's got money. Are they listening more to their bank account than they are the coaches? Are they there because they love Texas A&M and they want to get an education? Are they there just because they got paid some money and they'll take whatever bare minimum classes they have to take just to be eligible, if people even check that stuff anymore, because, they could identify as a straight A student, and legally somebody probably would take up that challenge in the world we live in today. We better watch out where we're going with this stuff, folks, because if I'm Jimbo Fisher, how do I get anybody's attention when I got an 18-year-old kid that might be getting $300,000 in NIL? Again, what's the Prince line, Audrey? Seems like I was busy doing something close to nothing. And that's where Jimbo's not the only coach that has this problem, but they are the ones that put the focus on themselves. Like, we are Texas A&M. We gonna foghorn leghorn here. We gonna get everybody. Back off, boys. You're bothering me. They got a lot of money. Do they have a lot of sense, Gordon?
Well, one thing is, Rob, you look at some of these people, and the biggest thing to them is, some people, like we talked off the air, they may not really care about winning, how much they can pay someone or who's getting a favor or something like that. Yeah. And, I kind of go back and I look at some of these coaching jobs that are open. And then, I saw that Colorado, after Mel Tucker, hired Carl Durrell. And I hate to keep coming back to him. But what university would have seeked Carl Durrell out? Nobody. The guy didn't win. He got fired at UCLA. He got fired as Vanderbilt's offensive coordinator. He's been in the pros. He coached there at one point. And they hired this guy, and now they're paying him $11 million to get rid of him. I think that some of these ADs need to start making some better decisions about what they're doing and, watch their money.
Well, what gets me is there's no accountability. You see people in these search committees and search firms. Let's be honest. Search firms, a lot of them they've got friends that are coaches and athletic directors around the country, and they're going to help them out, throw their name in the mix that other people want them. And then their current employer says, well, okay, we'll pay you this much more to stay, when they had no intention of wanting to leave. They drag these searches on, and then rumors and innuendos and unsubstantiated, just BS are thrown out there conveniently right before it looks like something's about to happen. And, the optics aren't good. We can't touch this. I mean, you look at the money that's being flushed. I'll tell you what, if it were me coming in as an AD, I would put everybody in the office on commission. You eat what you kill. All coaches on commission. You eat what you kill. You don't produce, you don't get money. You get a basic minimum cost of living allowance. But when you pay somebody $8 or $10 million a year with no fear of accountability or retribution, I mean, Brian Harsin made the post-game Auburn Network. I read in Kevin Skarbinski's article yesterday morning in the Birmingham Lead. He made them wait an hour and 20 minutes after the Auburn-Arkansas game. The post-game radio show where the coach will come on. I mean, come on. But no matter what, he's going to get $15.3 million if Auburn gets rid of him in a buyout clause. Jimmy, don't you wish, you had a job with something like that? Some kind of a guarantee that no matter what you did, you got 15.3, 20, 30 million, or Jimbo, 85 million.
Yeah, or Mel Tucker, $85 million left on his contract guaranteed after he embarrassed not only his university, but college football in general by ganging up on a Michigan player in the tunnel after the game. It was like 10-on-1. I can't believe they didn't just suspend those guys through the rest of the season. I mean, it's just completely out of hand. But at the same time, though, in college football, this is just where we are.
Jimmy,
certain, yeah.
Jimmy, one thing about Mel Tucker, though, is the guy was 6-7 at
Gordon,
Colorado.
move your finger out of the way.
My finger's not in the way.
Yeah, now it is. Now you're good. Now you're
Now
good.
you're good. Now you're good.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
We're getting there, Jimmy.
And
We're
then
getting there.
One winning season, and he gets a $95 million contract. Like Slim Pickens said in Blazing Saddles, what in the wide world of sports is going on here?
Yeah, but what do you expect at Michigan State? They allowed Larry Nassar, who doubled as the U.S. women's gymnastics team trainer, to molest athletes for 20 years. They find out about it, and or maybe they didn't really want to find out about it until 2 or 3 years ago. Then you had the football team during the D'Antonio years, where they had serial sexual abuse. Then you had it with Michigan State basketball, including an assistant coach. I mean, let's face it, the Michigan State administration, these aren't the brightest bulbs in the shed. It was so bad when they offered the job to Luke Fickell. He wanted no part of it because of all that nonsense. And then after Tucker went 2-5 in the pandemic year 2 seasons ago, he brings in 15 transfer portal guys. 14 of them make significant contributions. They have a double-digit win year. And then after one successful season as a head coach, they offer him an extension for $95 million. Are you kidding?
Jimmy, hold that thought. Jimmy, hold that thought, because you're nailing it. And it wasn't after a full season. Remember, it was before they played Ohio State, and then they were trounced 56-7. What a world we live in. We'll be right back with more Sidelines on Monday.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BB for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back with Gordon Ford, Jimmy Hodge. We're having the old Monday morning college football blitz, and just got a nice text here from our good friend and listener down in Noonan, Georgia, Coweta County, Lane Duggar, talking about these trustees and these people that put these big mega deals together out there at College Station, Texas. He said, can't you just imagine the meeting in there when they signed that contract and they were all standing up with their big old cowboy hats on and their bolo ties, talking to Jimbo. Well, now, sir, that'll be mighty fine indeed. Yes, sir. What a bunch of living brain donors, man. I mean, Audrey, my wife and producer, Gordon and Jimmy, y'all know her. She just said something during the break that made a lot of sense. Why not do what people in the real business world, and we are supposed to be preparing these young men for the real world, I believe. Correct? Yes. Say, Jimbo, in order to get this money, you have to win X number of games. And no, you can't go schedule a bunch of directional schools and rental wins. Okay. You can't do that. You got to play a legitimate schedule and stop this silliness and this nonsense, because look at all the fan bases around the country, gentlemen, that are being asked to give money, and they stockpile all this money. And what do they do with it? They spend 20 and 25 million to pay coaches to not coach. Wouldn't that be great? Gordon, can you imagine if you were let's say you were a doctor, and your business was a lousy, poorly run practice, and you weren't very successful, and you were paid $15 million to stop practice. What would you do?
Take the money.
I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, look, there's just no accountability. Sooner or later, this is real money, and someone's got to accept that fact. But Jimmy, Gordon, you think about wherever the school is, an AD, if I would come in and I would get everybody in there and say, all your little fiefdoms and your little cliques and your little agendas and the people that put you here, we're going to find out if you're not all on the same page with me. I will find you a new job right now. You gotta, you can't, you've got to be in charge, and you got to hold people accountable, because the fans are saying, you're squeezing us, man, from everywhere. You're squeezing us. We can't even park near the stadium. You got to get a ride aboard an Amish buggy, man, from where you tailgate 2 miles from campus, because, the big donors, which you got to have donors and all. But, we've got to get back. Jimmy, let's go to you. You live in the upper Midwest, but you're a Southerner, and, you're from the South. But, what about common sense? I mean, what do people in other parts of the country, well, is there any place now where there's common sense? Who's the best coach AD relationship that you've seen in America, other than the fact that Alabama can never pay Nick Saban enough money for what he's done for that school?
Yeah, I mean, you got some right off the bat. Danny White and Josh Heupel, obviously, they came as a package deal. Yeah. I don't think it was maybe originally meant that way, but the circumstances made it a perfect opportunity to do so. And then I think Saban and Browne have a great relationship, and that's a big part of it. And that's why this, and I know we'll get into this can of worms later, this Auburn AD athletic selection is so important. It reminds me of, I think, 5 years ago when it looked like Tennessee was on the verge of having the news conference to announce Greg Schiano as the head coach on almost 5 years to the day on a Monday morning. And then Clay Travis quickly organized an online lynching mob of his followers to, just bombard the chancellor with a protest. And then they spread false rumors about when Schiano was at Penn State as an assistant, and he reportedly witnessed a Sandusky assault on a young boy, which did not happen. And so, things can really get ugly when things like that happen. Now, the Auburn deal is different because you're talking about an AD hire here, but this as of right now, is more important than any other hire, because the AD is going to be recommending who he thinks the next coach should be, and then everybody else is going to have to get on board. So, like I said, that's news at 10. It looks like the Auburn president is having second thoughts, and he's going to, I think, give some more time to supporters of the other two candidates to maybe make their case. But again, though, you when certain parties get involved, and then this at Tennessee with the Clay Travis thing, you get online participation that can intimidate university officials. You got problems.
Yeah, Jimmy, I totally agree with you. Here's something again from Foghorn Leghorn. I'll do it again this week. Maury Gaston sent this in. If I were president at Texas A&M, I would have Jimbo Fisher come to my office on Monday, today, in a very public manner. Cameras and film crew outside the building. Too often, we don't put any performance pressure on these guys before we load their Brinks truck. They still have pride, even if not motivation. Shame them into performance if necessary. You can quote me, Maury Gaston, proud son of Sylacauga, Alabama, the marble capital of the world, and a very smart man and a great friend of mine for 40 years. And I'm going to tell you what, Jimmy, I love what you just said. And you got to listen to the fans. And Gordon, you look at Ole Miss, you know Keith Carter, the athletic director there. We had him on the show. Man, that guy is a rock star.
And you know,
he's outstanding.
You just mentioned about, you know, athletic directors. How can you say that he's not in the top 5 or 10? He's won the national championship in baseball. Look at football, won 10 games last year. Basketball had massive injuries, but they're going to be good this year. So you look at his overall deal, and, you know, in the rankings, I mean, they're way up there in mostly all sports. And the one thing about him is he's, you know, not someone out there showboating. He that sits around and he thinks things out and he makes the right decisions. And I'm glad he's there.
You know what? Keith Carter, when you think about it, played basketball at Ole Miss, been around, comes back, understands business. And an athletic director's got to understand about profitability. And also if you're losing money. What gets me is these are state universities funded by who? The state resident. And if you pay, if you're out of state at a school like Auburn, you pay 3 times as much. Okay? You're damn right you got a say in what goes on down there. And if you're the president, you are like, think about it, Jimmy, Gordon, you are the president, you're the chairman, the CEO of a publicly traded company. And a football game with 90,000 people or 100,000 people in your stadium is a shareholders meeting. You are accountable to the shareholders. And there is, I see it, I feel it, I sense it. I say, back off, you're bothering me. Foghorn Leghorn there. I can't get him out of my system now. A populist uprising of college football, college sports fans across the country. And it all started when we started being asked to give more money for NIL and stuff like that than we do to our own children. Jimmy, is that fair?
Yeah, well, that's going to be a big part of the equation going forward. And we've been talking about, you know, A&M's problems for most of the year. And, you know, for next year, you're going to have a big number of players, I think, that are going to be leaving A&M. And in turn, A&M's going to be scouring the availability of transfer portal candidates throughout the country, and they're going to find guys that they think that can fit into their system and make them a much better team because they already have extensive Division I experience and they've proven themselves to be very good players at that level. And you're going to see this with every Power 5 program in the country. So that is going to be a huge part of the equation. And you have to have coaching staffs that are good at evaluating these players, not only those guys, but the upcoming freshmen, and try to figure out which guys have a realistic possibility to help you right away and separate those from the guys that are going to take more time to develop and realize you'll have to be patient with them. So this is not as easy as it looks on the surface, meshing all these guys into an effective team.
No, I mean, and Jimmy, that's a great point. You look at an office, if you got 50 employees, 50 guys out on the trading floor selling bonds or whatever you're doing, you've got to give people, though, structure and incentives. And you also, the effective leaders. Jimmy, you are a great listener. I mean, you process things. Gordon is a great listener. I mean, if you want to buy a home, you get a mortgage loan, Gordon's your man. I mean, he'll work on Saturday morning for you. That's what you want to have as your coach and athletic director. What you don't want is someone who's getting a big salary and is insulated from the people. Gordon, what about the possibility of Lane Kiffin going out in the Grove after an Ole Miss? Let's say Ole Miss beats Alabama. What about him going out in the Grove and just hanging out? Would anybody offer him a free beer?
Oh,
Beer? A cold beer now. Not just a free beer, but a cold beer as opposed to a hot one.
Yep, they definitely would offer him a cold beer.
But
and a ham sandwich and a piece of chicken too, Rob.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is coaches used to be, you think about Johnny Vaught, Coach Jordan, Coach Bryant. I mean, they just, you would see them out in public. And that's what we need to get back to. That's where the resentment and the anger is coming from in the fans. We're going to save college football. It's going to work itself out. But right now, and I know this because I've seen people pass kidney stones. It's painful right now, Gordon. And I know you're at the Commerce Bank of Beverly Hills up there in Memphis. And I'm asking you, Gordon, before we go, look across the horizon. Do you think that athletic directors are starting to go, we better be careful about giving up all of our leverage with these ridiculous contracts like what they do at Texas A&M? I mean, you got to take the money if you're Jimbo. I know that, but it's the ADs and the agents. We know how the game works. You're an agent or you're in trouble at a school. You get your agent to throw your name in the mix for other jobs around the country, Gordon. You know that's true, isn't it?
That is true, but I'm going to leave you on this here, Rob. If I was an athletic director, then one of the things the first thing I would say to myself is, I want to win. And I want my players to graduate and run a clean program.
Yeah.
You hear all these names mentioned. First of all, I would never hire a Clemson offensive coordinator. Chad Morris has failed. Tony Elliott's failing. And Jeff Scott is downright horrible.
God.
So the one thing is a name I see mentioned none at all that has won is Bobby Petrino.
Yeah.
And I know he's doing well at that school he's at now. And he
Missouri
won
State.
at Louisville and had a Heisman Trophy winner, but you don't hear. And he's kind of a jerk himself, but you don't hear his name mentioned in any job.
Well, I mean.
And he can win.
I agree with you. And you know what? Bobby Petrino has screwed up. Who hasn't? Who hadn't done stupid stuff?
Rick Pitino did. Look, I mean, he's got a job.
All these people out here call themselves, I believe in forgiveness, there, brother Jim. Really? Then let go of whatever. I mean, okay, that was years ago. Bobby Petrino went to the Touchdown Club in Little Rock. They gave him a standing ovation. Those people respect him. And, he screwed up. He admitted it. I mean, hey, Gordon, have you ever made a mistake in your life?
Yes, everybody has.
I mean, God bless. The guy can coach, and I think he's, he may have the personality of Joe Stalin. I don't know. I don't know the guy. I've watched him from afar and know people that have been around him. But you know what? A lot of times a coach or an AD can scare the existing culture at a college or university, and they will do a torpedo job to take somebody out if they're threatened by them. That's a fact, isn't it, Gordon? That's just the way it is. Yeah. People are scared of people that will come in and hold them accountable. Again, I'd put everybody on commission. Hey, most TV commercials you see, they want to attack commission salesmen versus a salary. Hey, Gordon, Jimmy, y'all know this. You call me at 5:30 in the morning. You want me to help you with your account. You need help, or you're interested in being a sponsor on Sidelines. I'm not going to answer the phone and go, hello. I'm going to go, hey, how you doing, man? I'm probably in a duck blind with MJ somewhere eating a sausage biscuit or dog training or something. But you know what? Make yourself available, but also always be hungry, Gordon. I'm hungry right now. Audrey.
You're right. Speaking of that, Rob, I've got to go and do what you just said. So, but
hey,
I appreciate being on the sidelines. I'll watch my thumb next week. So, and,
Gordon, as Audrey said, it wouldn't be as much fun if you were perfect. Nobody's perfect, but we'll do it again later in the week.
It's good seeing your face for the first time. You're a handsome man. So there you go.
Hey, real quick,
Gordon, we'll
Gordon.
see you soon. And I think you were plugging again for maybe our younger listeners. The Rolling Stones hit Under My Thumb. I thought it was very appropriate.
I hear you.
Jimmy, Gordon, get up in the fire tower. Keep fire watch. We'll get you back on this week, okay?
I love it, man. Talk some basketball. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Gordon, of course, will be on the Rebel Yell hotline tonight, 6 to 7 p.m. Sports 56 WHBQ
No, actually,
in
we
Memphis.
won't be on. We're off tonight.
Off tonight. Okay. But normally Monday nights, 6 to 7 p.m. Central and Super Talk, Mississippi. So got to love that. Yep. Hotty toddy, Gordo. And, I like about Gordon, Jimmy, is he being the banker.
He leaves with the thumbprint is what I like.
Absolutely.
With the thumbprint.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I got to roll. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Jimmy, your example about whatever happened, we'll get back to it. Doug Dean's going to be on with us here when we come back from Birmingham, but Michigan State, man, they just keep stepping in it. What happened this past weekend you talked about, I just don't get it. And, the head coach in every other organization I know of, if you are the boss and something happens on your watch, you're held accountable. And how do you hold people accountable if there's no hurt to it? You take money from them, you do something, you fine them, you do something, but you got to get their attention. But hey, we're going to be back in just a moment. I want to say something too. Get out to Hewlett and Dunn on the Square in Collierville, Tennessee, Boot and Clothing Company. They had 30 boxes of boots coming in the other day, folks. Check them out, hewlettandunn.com. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
We are back here for segment number 3 on this Monday edition of Sidelines. Always listen to us Monday through Saturday, www.sidelines.live. Give us a follow on Twitter at sidelines_live. We appreciate you following us. We'll be glad to follow you. A lot of great information out there. We're a sports radio show and podcast 6 days a week. That's what we do. That's who we are. A great segment there. First couple of segments with Gordon, the fireman Ford. Now we go to Birmingham, to the Magic City, to another great one, Doug Dean, AU Dose, and Jimmy Hodge is up in Chicago. I'm here in Mallory's Kitchen in Atlanta. Notice the Christmas tree behind me because she's got a baby due the first week of December. And so it's like, hey, better get that Christmas tree up now before you don't feel like doing it. It's not even Halloween. Today is Happy Halloween, I might add. And man, I got scared being in Auburn Saturday, Doug.
Yeah, you think so? I wasn't even surprised. Good morning to Jimmy and Rob, Audrey, everybody listening, watching. One of my youngest daughter, who Hannah, aka Spud, so named because she followed our twin daughters by exactly 5 years. And when the twins were born, they were about just under 5 pounds each. So I'm leaving delivery room with one in each cradle of the arm. 5 years later, I'm carrying Hannah out at almost 9 pounds. And I said, dang, this little girl's like a sack of potatoes. So I nicknamed her Spud at 15 minutes old, and it stuck. So, but she loves to call me, when she reads my newsletter, a sunshine pumper, which I take great offense to. I'm objective. No, I'm Eileen Sunny, but I am being, as you might imagine, Brian Harsin is finding new ways every Saturday to cure me of my sunny disposition.
Yes.
And I wasn't surprised. I finally, I guess, put a smile on Spud's face Friday in my newsletter when I said this looks a lot like a big Arkansas win to my eyes. And there was really we continue to not have anything left in the tank, including coaching genius, particularly the second half of these games, Rob. So, honestly, I'm not going to do a disservice to your listeners spending inordinate time on Auburn football. It's on life support, putting it mildly. I'm only shocked that we don't have the power structure in place. Thanks, going back to what Stephen Leaf begat. He begat Alan Green, who was in over his head. Nice guy, but in over his head for a job like this. And so it just cascades down to what we're seeing. And I do want to tip my hat to Jimmy, who is right about forecasts a lot more than he's wrong. And he said, I at the time, I guess it was late last week, was not aligned with Jimmy's worldview on the Lovelace Village. But he said his sense was that there would be an opportunity Auburn would due to our dysfunction. Sorry if I'm paraphrasing unfairly, Jimmy, but that we would find a way to make this a messy process, something like that. I thought Hartwell was close to being hired. It's none of my business, and I make no demands on Auburn nor President Roberts to share anything about the process with me. I can only say, pivoting away from the football game, which was a study in, lack of motivation, lack of strategy, and serious roster problems. But I can only assume that behind the scenes, in President Roberts' mind, there was something in the background, the pedigree that caused him trepidation about hiring what was on paper, whether you go with Eddie Nunez, or John Hartwell, sure passed the eye test as deep and wide experience for a job like that. And so out of the blue, I think you forecast this as well, Jimmy, comes the John Cohen sitting AD at Hale State. And I don't know anyone who saw that coming. And I believe that Cohen actually, probably through an intermediary, which is the way it works, introduced his own name. Now, who does that remind you of, Rob? Brian Harsin. Brian Harsin's agent introduced him late in the messed up process. And here we are on that front. So I can only hope that cooler heads will prevail today, because I think as we sit, Jimmy may have alluded to this, I don't think any decision is in final form, and there may even be some strong voices that have a good bank accounts weighing in on the whole process.
Well, John Hartwell, Eddie Nunez, I mean, those are two names. You look at, counterintelligence, thinking the opposite. A lot of time, Saturday, as all this stuff was happening at the game, my phone was, a lot of stuff coming out in there. And the one name you weren't hearing in the last few days was John Hartwell, who I thought was the leading candidate. He got a great resume, because I'm not privy to information that search committee has, but I'm also not dumb. And I'll just say that stuff comes out at the last minute. Is that convenient? Is that a torpedo job? Are there people that are afraid of someone coming in that's going to line people up and hold people accountable, and they want to protect their fiefdom, their turf? You're damn right there are. There are people like that in every organization out there. They don't want that. They like their salaries. They like things just the way they are, just kind of minimalist. Okay. You know, I like to be around people who are exceptional, who want to be the best. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people out there. You get a job with a guaranteed salary. It's like eternal life. You're terrified of that. You don't want someone coming in that's going to say, all right, we're going to be getting in here earlier. Hey, when I first got in the bond business, man, we had to be in there at 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. And on Saturdays, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And it was intense. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Eat what you kill.
Yeah. 31 years later, I go into work every day. I'm so fired up. Walking through the hall up that, ramp to get out on the trading floor is like running through the tunnel at Jordan Hare, Neyland, or Bryant Denny. I love that. And if I was running an organization, I'd say, all you people that got these big fat salaries, we're going to find out what you're doing to get that. We're going to look at everything. We're going to do forensic accounting. And that's what makes me mad is that, if there's something out there and it, make it obvious. But we live in a world right now where people can take you out at the knees in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And we'll get Jimmy in here in a second, but there's, and I've been around my share of high level searches at different organizations, not athletics, but and that certainly brings a different. You've got visibility, and not everyone is your friend, as you said, Rob. And I would never point the finger at a rival school as tinkering, because in the case of Auburn, if we're honest, our rivals who would rather us stay dysfunctional, strategically speaking. Would be smart to follow the axiom: if your enemy is killing himself, just stay out of the way.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that the people who might have a motivation, one way or the other, to use disruption or disinformation, or sometimes information that on the one hand is accurate, but in the case of a critical hire should not, for example, if it's 20 years later and had at best shaky credibility in its origin, maybe that data point is unfair to introduce, even if there may have been some truth to it. And I don't have anything particularly in mind about any of these candidates.
Yeah.
But if that by the way, if you want to play Sherlock Holmes, to the extent a Hartwell or Nunez were sterling candidates, and I believe both were, I'd have been happy with either one. Then the tempting finger to point would be internally, because Auburn has most of the stereotype is we've got a long history of dysfunction and sort of Game of Thrones inside the athletic complex, and factions with some of our money powers. I don't know how much is that is fact or fiction, but another culprit you have to consider in this Sherlock Holmes game is coaches who would love to be the head coach at Auburn and their agents. One of them lives in the same zip code you spend a lot of time in, Rob Browne. So, there's a lot of this. This is where you really show your chops as a president and later on an AD in understanding how to go quietly about your business, have your guy identified, and do all your homework, get support internally, and then pull the trigger fast enough where you avert the possibility of going through a clown show like we've had in the last week or two.
Yeah. August 26th, Friday, it was announced Alan Green's contract would not be renewed in February of 2023.
Yeah.
Okay. That's over 2 months ago. Okay. In the meantime, Georgia Tech fired their football coach and their athletic director, Todd Stansberry, the Canadian, and they've already hired an athletic director. They hired one of the top guys from Alabama, and Auburn still hadn't hired one. Well, we're working, come on. I mean, Jimmy, jump in here.
Well, again, as always seems to be the case, as Doug mentioned, I mean, this type of thing always seems to be complicated at Auburn. And out of the three candidates, though, no matter who they end up going with, in my mind, they all meet the most important characteristic, is that they have extensive experience in the SEC. Now, even if you don't have a direct connection with Auburn or you haven't worked there specifically, if you've worked at these neighboring SEC schools, there's a very good chance that you've developed relationships with your counterparts at the other SEC schools, and that would certainly be the case at Auburn. So all of these guys, I think, are familiar with the culture at Auburn, which I think would be very important. I think what it gets down to here, and Doug, I'm just speculating on this, but in the past, when some of these decisions were being made, I think certain factions of the power brokers that have always been influential in the past on these type of decisions, if their guy wasn't chosen, they had a tendency to bite their lip and just move on. But I think in this case, when the rumor got out that the announcement would be made, or they would have the press conference as early as maybe yesterday, that these particular individuals that in the past had been quiet, they weren't going to stay quiet on this one. And they let their feelings be known, and most likely threats of maybe huge contributions to the university may have been, in danger there. And administrators are always going to pay attention to that. And not only contributions now, but a lot of these alumni have plans to leave huge amounts of money after their death, So this is not as cut and dried as a lot of people think. And I think in this case, I just think a lot of people at Auburn that have a lot of influence decided to step in and let their feelings be known. That's just speculation, but that's just kind of the impression I get from the outside, Doug.
Well, Jimmy, let me help you. You're kind to, as I always try to be restrained in doing, and not make a claim on air like this that is not at least reasonably substantiated. But it is my belief that absolutely occurred. And I'm not talking one or two, influential, important boosters, but from what I understand, multiple. And I won't take up time until this process reaches an announcement point to outline any particular candidate's background. But in the background of this is a kind of an unanswerable question at the moment, because I think there are two stories to it. But there's one side of the story that state fans who really know what's going on in their program would not be unhappy that Cohen would depart there for Auburn. Maybe there's a little point of pride. The reality is Auburn is probably is a better job historically. May not be at the moment for reasons we've talked about than State. But then the other side of the coin is a faction that believes that Auburn is indeed getting a quality athletic director with solid experience. My only reservation is going into it, I wanted depth and diversity of experience in business and athletics. And I think Hartwell, and to a slightly lesser extent, Nunez, met that. Cohen kind of meets it, but the book on him is that he was a baseball player and coach. Nothing wrong with that. Butch Thompson might love that. And then went immediately into athletics leadership. So I don't know that. I think he's a little more shallow in terms of the experience. Doesn't mean he can't be a brilliant AD. On paper, I would love to understand what the calculus was getting to that point.
Well, here's an example of the kind of comments, and I get a lot of them from fans of different schools. This is from an Auburn fan I've known for 4 decades. Okay, very successful guy, very successful. Plans on leaving Auburn, or I might say planned. This is the sample size of some of the lots and lots of text I've received the last couple of days. I absolutely agree. This is a complete cluster shuck. I am so frustrated. I'm giving careful consideration to selling our townhouse in Auburn and giving up our scholarship seats we've had for 18 plus years. Enough is enough. When you've got somebody that's this good, why not hire him? And then letting stuff come at the last second. come on, like you didn't. I mean, I see you sense the frustration. Look, if there's something on anybody that's so egregious, then so be it. But so, make sure you give that person a fair chance to speak, because we know what can happen. People can go behind your back in anything and take you out. Yep. Everybody I've talked to that knows John Hartwell, Ole Miss people, different people, they're like, man, this guy is rock solid. He graduated from the Citadel. And he knows about honor, truth, and loyalty.
Yep.
And again, I again, if I'm wrong about, I can't imagine, but I just say with anybody. And Eddie Nunez, I don't know him. I haven't talked to him, but he has a good resume. Hartwell has been in private practice, worked for E&Y for 4 years. Those are skills that I would covet to have in my athletic director. And Jimmy, you nailed it.
Rob, real quick. Not only that, there's speculation, and I think it's just that should, if Hartwell's out in the Auburn opportunity, AD opportunity, that keep an eye on the Mountain West Conference looking to John Hartwell as their next commissioner.
Yeah. Hold those thoughts, Doug. We're going to come back. We got a few more minutes with you after this. This is great stuff. Great commentary. Jimmy Hodge up in Lake Zurich, Chicago land. Doug Dean in Birmingham. I'm in Mallory's Kitchen over here in Atlanta. We're going to be right back with more.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BB for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you, and great group we got right now. Doug Dean in Birmingham, Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, Matt Dean over at Rhodes College, most beautiful inner city campus in America, the Ivy League of the South, joins us now. But we're going to go back to Doug Dean. Before we do, I want to say something about Haygood, Pierce, Thompson, Cleveland, and Short. They've been the law in Auburn since 1959. At some point in your life, everybody's going to need an attorney. Check them out on our website. Give them a call. They're there to help you. You're in Auburn for any number of reasons. Wherever you live, they can cover all the bases from A to Z. Great folks to work with. I've known Phil Thompson 40 years now. Great man from Huntsville, lives in Auburn. They are the law in Auburn since 1959. But anyway, go back to you, Doug. You were waxing eloquently before the break about John Hartwell and the Mountain West.
Well, hardly eloquent. You got to stop that. that shameless effort to get me to become a sponsor. But I just think Hartwell is very well thought of in that region, and there are multiple. Was it Craig Thompson that stepped down as Mountain West commish? And to my knowledge, maybe they filled. I'm not aware. I don't follow them closely, but it would be not unlike the Java historical record for us to pass on a guy who is later found worthy of being commissioner of a conference. So it's just there are a lot of questions that any intelligent, curious Auburn person or any other observer would have about. It may be none of our business, but if we pay money and support the program, it kind of is our business to some extent, particularly in light of the shaky history of how ADs and in some cases head football coaches have been selected at Auburn University. So, I'm cheering on the process. I think I owe President Roberts an opportunity to get through this storm and see how he weathers it. It might turn out beautifully. One thing about Auburn, Rob, when things look like they're dysfunctional and impossible, there have been moments in our history that's when we do shockingly good things. So, hope's eternal.
I agree. Doug, if you would, hang on here because your background and again, what you do for a living. Matt Dean is joining us right now. Matt's got 31 plus years in athletics administration, 16 of those coaching women's basketball at Rhodes, but understands the administrative side and whatever like that. And Matt.
And he's got a great last name, I might add.
Absolutely. We got two Irishmen down here together, parallel. But Matt, give your take on what's happening. We've been talking about a lot of things today. AD search at Auburn with John Hartwell, who seems the resume is incredible. And, you've seen these searches. Kind of we're getting into your wheelhouse right now. So, Matt Dean, what are your thoughts? And I want Doug to respond to what you say. And then Jimmy, can you talk about it?
Can you hear me okay, guys? I just got on. So I just
testing. 1, 2, 3. Pow, this is Mildred. Get Matt Dean on there.
Well, I will tell you, Rob, I'm a little jealous. I like to be in Audrey's kitchen today because it looks like there's some good food being produced. I'm a former interim AD. I got the job kind of in a 30-minute conversation and then became the actual AD and then retained it for a few years. So at my level, it's much different than the Power 5 level. I will say I was listening to the broadcast before I joined. Georgia Tech seemed to have a vision in place, obviously, before they made their changes in the football program and their AD job because they acted swiftly. I will tell you, in my job searches hiring coaches, I always had a short list. So the one thing I will tell you about this, regardless of how it plays out, and I have a lot of respect for John Hartwell. I actually coached his nephew, one of my stops in college basketball, but it doesn't look like maybe when this thing started that there was that short list necessarily out there. I will say this, Auburn has a lot of good people in place. That department is historically great. They have some great things going on in different programs right now. But as someone who has looked outside for a while, they just got to get the football position fixed. And to do that, you have to have confidence in your next athletic director. My biggest concern is whoever they bring in, can you get the right person in that job, whether it's John Cohen, John Hartwell. That's my biggest concern if I'm an Auburn alum right now is I want to have someone that can help us attract quality candidates to a historically great program.
Totally agree.
Well, I don't think there's a ton of debate on that, but I just think right now, my son's in recruiting and scouting at a Power 5 program. We are almost at November 1. The signing date is third week in December this year. I think it's 21st or 22nd, early signing date. Gosh, if you're going to make a move at football, you better get the AD thing done yesterday. And that's my biggest concern is if you're bringing him in, what's his plan for football? That's at the press conference. That's got to be one of my first questions.
Yeah, Doug Dean, great stuff, Matt. I mean, you laid out the case.
Matt, first of all, it's great to share the screen and microphone with you. And I would just say we are not worthy relative to your background in athletics administration and and management, at least speaking for myself. But I think I'd be curious your take on what is different, what has changed in terms of the leadership requirements of a modern day 2022 and beyond athletic director. I speak obviously of several tectonic places shifting, especially in the Deep South with NIL. That's national. That's a big deal, and you can not like it, but if you don't play the game, you are on your way to mediocrity. The transfer portal insanity, and I think in some ways maybe more critically, the inevitable coming of I would guess super conference in the SEC. We're already adding Oklahoma and Texas. There's a good chance, most believe we'll add a couple or four more. So my take is that the old days, glad ending doing some fundraising and leaving most of the stuff to your coaches are behind us, and you need an AD now who is not, timid about NIL, but actually is embracing it, of course, legally and within whatever the heck the NCAA rules are. But can you comment on what, if you were hiring an AD, what different skill set or leadership traits you think become important, not 10 years ago, but going forward?
Doug, I think you hit it on the head. It's also a pleasure to join the screen with you, my friend. I listen to Hartwell's background. He's exactly the guy I would want because of his background prior to becoming an athletic director. He has a ton of business acumen. From what I do, I follow him a little bit on Twitter, but it looks like a program like Utah State, they progress in some of their NIL platforms. And I just think if you look at his background at Ole Miss, he understands the league very well. I think, this would be a much different conversation if he didn't have Southern roots and Southern ties to institutions that, are very similar to Auburn. So I think I would definitely want someone that understood the importance of NIL in today's world. Also someone that can relate to coaches. And how can you find that out? Well, I think we know a little bit of historical knowledge about him and his relationships with some SEC coaches. And I also would want the opinion of my most successful leaders on the coaching staff. And I'm guessing, common sense prevails here. I want to make sure Bruce is happy with this hire, and it doesn't just have to be Bruce because it could be a committee of your head coaches. But I would definitely be meeting with our head coaches to find out, hey, this is our pool. What are your thoughts?
Would you be okay if we left Coach Harsin out of that meeting?
Yes, I would. And, I'm just being honest here, and it's hard for me as a former head coach to talk about coaches in peril, because I've been in those circumstances where I've had to reinvent myself, bring in really a new recruiting class that rejuvenated the program. But I think we just have to be honest with where we are right now after last weekend's game. And I would include those coaches that I think are going to be prominent moving forward.
No question.
Yeah, and you've got to have somebody ready to make a decision, Matt. And
yes,
and again, that's the thing that's interesting about it. Doug, something interesting too. Matt's son Tyler was at A&M the last 4 years on Jimbo Fisher's staff.
Wow.
He's now on the staff with Dan Lanning at Oregon, and I know
they're fun at Oregon.
Yeah, Matt. Again, look at Bo Nix, Doug. The 1 year, his freshman year was his best year at Auburn. Who was his offensive coordinator? Kenny Dillingham. Who's calling the airstrikes right now at Oregon, Matt Dean?
Let me just tell you what, guys. I was there for the UCLA game 2 weekends ago. Had a chance to be in the building, meet some of the coaches. They are in a good spot. And I also was there for when Georgia dismantled them 49-3 8 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
The leadership in that building, I know Kenny's relatively young OC, but he's a terrific play caller. And Bo Nix is having, what do you say, top 5, top 3 quarterback year in the country right now, guys, with the last 7 weeks, his numbers. I mean, he's been literally outstanding. And Rob, you and I talked yesterday, and, he's someone, I got to be honest with you. If I'm an AD looking at a head coach, I'd be like, gosh, let's connect the dots here. He's been at our institution as an offensive coordinator. The quarterback we had as a freshman is now having great success with him 4 years later. He would be someone I would have a conversation about. I'm not saying he's ready for that. Don't get me wrong. But it'd definitely be someone I would have a conversation with.
That's exactly what I said yesterday. Was Kenny Dillingham might be 33 years old. Jimmy and Doug, y'all's thoughts on it, but this guy's a rising star.
Because Arizona State's going to probably look at him as well, just so you know, guys.
I'm going to have to cut out in a minute, Rob, but I would say, first of all, is well documented. Dilly, we like to jokingly call him when he was at Auburn. He's very bright, but he was not given free reign by Malzahn to really run the game and design the game plan and call. Gus never was able to truly let go of play calling or game plan design. And you see proof of that at Oregon. Admittedly, Bo Nix is not having to go up against the savages on the defensive fronts from the SEC, but it's still big-time football, and I couldn't be happier for Bo getting experience. Before I cut out, Jimmy, this is for you. Am I in a damn alternate universe? The AP Top 25 slides the Crimson Tide all the way down to 6. Give me a damn break. I mean, nothing against, obviously, Georgia and Tennessee earned a spot there in Tennessee. My goodness, they look for real. And I guess regionally and politically, you're going to get Ohio State and Michigan up there. I do not understand Clemson ahead of Alabama. And Saban has got to be licking his chops with this motivational opportunity.
Yeah, I don't think well,
it's kind of the way of the world. I mean, there's a lot of Alabama fatigue out there, but I've seen Clemson 3 times, and they've been unimpressive all 3 times I've seen them. And to be truthful, it would be a stretch to rank them 4th in the SEC. And the way LSU's playing right now, I'm not sure they could beat them. But again, though, that's just kind of the way things are. I mean, Clemson has taken advantage of being in a weak league. They've dominated it for the better part of the last 15 years, and that's just the way things work. And you look at Ohio State. I mean, Penn State has really been the only team that had a semblance of an offense, and they were really on the ropes against those guys. And, they're not going to be tested again until Michigan. So, it's just hard to tell, how Ohio State would do with a road slate of playing at Austin, at Fayetteville, at Knoxville, and then close it out with back-to-back visits to Baton Rouge and Oxford. But again, that's just life in the SEC. That's the way it works.
They would not be unscathed, I would wager.
But it is interesting to see guys like Tim Brando, literally as soon as the Tennessee-Alabama game was over, tweeting that he was concerned that Alabama would not be dropped low enough, So, there's a lot of, again, media fatigue out there, with Alabama. But it's in reality, though, if Alabama wins their last 4 games, they're going to be able to determine their own destiny. So, a lot of that, it creates a lot of conversation and all that. But there's, you guys know, a lot of football left to be played. And if you get the job done on the field, you're going to be where you should be.
I think I'll get out of here after this comment, Rob, and everyone, but I think the looming, I don't know about likely, but possible controversy is that analytically, the committee, when the season ends, the conference championships end, the committee will have a case for not 2, but 3 SEC teams that won't do it. They can't do it because of politics.
That I see where you're going, and I've been thinking the same thing. You look at Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, LSU with 2 losses. I wouldn't put them in that conversation yet, but if they beat Alabama Saturday, maybe they are the team, that 3rd team. We've had teams. You remember that two-loss Auburn team in 2017 was number 2 in the college football rankings when December 3rd they did the rematch with Georgia. They win that game against Georgia, they're the 1 or 2 seed in the playoffs. Yeah. So it can happen. But Doug, look, appreciate you staying on extra with us right now, and this is great stuff as always. We will see what happens developing, and again, your commentary is spot on. And as I'm getting all kinds of messages from people who are saying it's good to have clarity and honesty from people as opposed to people that are afraid of their own shadows.
Absolutely. Y'all have a great day, man.
You do too. Thanks. Matt Dean, I would say this in fairness. Jimmy, and I see what you're saying about Alabama fatigue. That's not fair to Alabama. If you're consistently that damn good, you should not be punished by the national media. But I agree with you. There's so much envy and jealousy in other parts of the country of the SEC. But dadgummit, look at the track record. What's Nick Saban's record? 183-26 at Alabama. 6 national championships. He's played for it several more times. Golly. Matt Dean, I'd like to get the people from the College Football Playoff Committee on the show later this week. First rankings come out tomorrow night. Matt, give me, we're going to do this. We're going to go into a break. Think about this during the break. Your top 4 and Jimmy's top 4 that you would put in the College Football Playoff rankings that are going to be released Tuesday night. Get ready. Make sure your neighbors have the blinds pulled up so you can see it on the color TV when those rankings come out. But Bill Hancock and his crew in Dallas have been working on this. This is sort of like waiting for the crop reports and trading places, Clarence Beeks. But it's a big deal. And the SEC, that was a shot over the bow, I think, to move Alabama down to number 6 by a lot of angry, jealous voters around the country. We'll talk about it more at Sidelines right after this quick commercial break.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne, we went into the break and I said, Matt Dean, Jimmy Hodge, let's come out with your top 4, who you think the top 4 teams are in your mind. College football playoff rankings are released Tuesday night. I'll start with you, Matt Dean. Give me your top 4.
Okay, I want to preface it with one thing. I haven't talked to you guys since the Alabama game with Tennessee. And Tennessee is the hottest team in the country right now, but I also want to give Bama a lot of credit. Tough environment. They had a lot of penalties that day. That game should have ended with a kick to go to overtime or win the game. The last 35 seconds of that game, I don't think I've heard you guys talk about this, but Alabama did not. If they would have run the football one time, forced Tennessee to call a timeout or not, you could have kicked that kick, and the worst outcome would have been overtime. I want to say that before I give you my top 4, and I'm going to give you actually a 5th one. I got Georgia 1. Until you beat the dog, you can't beat a dog. That's number 1. Yeah. Number 2, I'm going to go Tennessee ahead of Ohio State, who's my 3rd team, because I just think the quality of wins the Vols have had are very impressive. And, Jimmy, I agree 100%. Penn State gave them the only scare they've had. I watched the first half of the Iowa game. Iowa literally scored a defensive touchdown. They had horrible field position, and all they got was 4 field goals in the first 5 drives. I'm still not sold on better offense against better defenses. So I got Tennessee 2, Ohio State 3. I'm going Bama 4, Clemson 5. That's my top 4 with Clemson at 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you putting Bama in there because Bama being pushed down to 6. I mean, there's a lot of football to be played, but hard to argue with that one. Jimmy?
Well, obviously, since it's going to come out next week, the winner of Tennessee, Georgia is going to be number 1. And unless it's a 2-score game or a bigger margin, then I think the loser will be at number 2. You're going to have Ohio State at number 3. Now, I personally think that you are going to see a TCU at number 4. They have been impressive all year long, and there's a lot of momentum there. And Sonny Dykes and his offensive coordinator, Matt Garrett Riley, the younger brother of Lincoln Riley, has kind of taken college football by storm. I think that the committee will probably go with them at number 4. Clemson's going to be number 5 just because they're undefeated and they're Clemson. And then Alabama's going to be in that 6th spot. So that's kind of where, I see it. But still, though, as I mentioned, there's a lot of football left to be played. But I am really stunned. I saw something today where Georgia was listed as a double-digit favorite over Tennessee. I just don't see that at all. Before this meeting on Saturday, I would personally have Tennessee at number 1. I mean, the way they played against Kentucky, and now they've got Tillman back, and their defense is really playing at a level that's impressive. I think right now it'd be hard to go against Tennessee in that number 1 spot.
And Jimmy and Matt, Cedric Tillman's back for Tennessee. Look what they've done without him. I noticed this a lot. You get a guy like that back. Number 1, he's not in football playing shape, probably. I mean, trust me on this one. That's what I think. He may come in, as crazy as it sounds, and disrupt the rhythm because they've grown comfortable in playing without him. And sometimes that can be a motivation that you don't really get, but you can get too comfortable when you've got a guy that's so good, you almost lean on him and default to him. And when he's not there, everybody's going, man, we better get there early and all do our jobs to make up for that. See where I'm going with that, Matt? You want him back.
No, I agree. And listen, I can't argue with the thing Jimmy says. The 2 rebuttals I would have on TCU, they played a very average to sub-average West Virginia team. The game was still in doubt in the 4th quarter. I have issues with their defense, but that's just – you can't deny what they've done offensively. Max Duggan is actually a product of Council Bluffs, Iowa, and how he's playing at TCU and not a Hawkeye right now. That's a different conversation. Another thing about Tennessee, except for the LSU game, guys, Florida, Bama, UK, all big wins have been at Neyland Stadium. They're going to a very hostile environment. It's going to be hard. I know their tempo will help them with the crowd because they just get it and go. But I think that Georgia is going to, with that offensive line, try to keep Tennessee's offense off the field. I think you're right, Jimmy. I don't think it's a 2-score game, but I think Georgia wins this game this weekend.
Georgia's leading rusher, Kenny McIntosh, has 315 yards on the season?
Right.
Georgia for the season has 9 total sacks. And Tennessee, a lot of people questioned their defense, the secondary, but against Kentucky, they absolutely manhandled and dominated the line of scrimmage. We all know, Kentucky is trying to build a program where they win 10, 11 games a year. But they've lost 3 now. You start saying they went on the road and they beat Florida. So what now? I like Tennessee's ability to impose their will on people and run the ball. But let's think about this. Tennessee versus Georgia. Get into a track meet. I'm as big a fan of Stetson Bennett IV out of Blackshear, Georgia, another South Georgia national champion quarterback, as there is in America. Now, what did you see in the Florida game that makes you concerned, Jimmy, as Georgia gets ready to host Tennessee. You're most likely to get mugged in your own driveway. If the majority group think is, we got Tennessee between the hedges, man, we got this, Georgia's going to lose if they're thinking like that. You got to play like you're playing on the road, even when you're playing at home in this kind of game, Jimmy. That's just my thought.
I'm concerned, if I'm a Georgia fan, that I had a 28-3 lead against Florida. It looked like all the elements were in place for just an absolute blowout. And then in the third quarter, Florida shows some fight. They cut the lead to 28-20. Georgia responded when they had to, offensively. But the reason for the outcome in that game, though, was the talent disparity between the two teams was just significant. And Billy Napier's in the process of getting that fixed. And I just can't get that Missouri game out of my mind. When Georgia went to Columbia and just, really struggled when Missouri had every reason in the world to fold the 10th the way they lost to Auburn the week before. And yet Drinkwitz got them to come back and play at the level they did. And how about that win Missouri had at South Carolina? I thought at this point in the season, when you get into that SEC grind, Missouri just didn't have the depth, to be able just to face another tough environment. And man, they just handled South Carolina. And Matt, I wanted to say, in regard to your comments about TCU, you're exactly right. In addition, I saw that TCU Kansas game. Kansas would have won the ball game had Daniels not gotten injured. And
Correct.
in fact, Kansas could very well be undefeated because Daniels has not been back since. But unfortunately, that's part of football.
Yeah.
But another reason I put TCU at number 4 is that at this point in the season, the committee loves undefeated teams. They're going to put those guys up there, and it's a great storyline anyway. So there are a lot of factors involved, but I'm telling you, I just am still a little skeptical about Georgia for an SEC program. I don't know if Kirby Smart could have handpicked a better schedule for them up to this point. They just haven't played anybody in my mind that had a legitimate chance to beat them. And now Tennessee, where they're at right now, it's totally unexpected. I think they can come in there with the idea of we're playing with house money. We know we can score points. I think they have to put a plan together. Oh, and by the way, as far as that Florida game went, you had that just Christmas gift touchdown in which Bowers, turned an interception into a 70-yard touchdown. And when, you have players like that, you're always going to have a good chance to win. But I do think the Vols are going to focus on trying to contain Bowers and Washington and make those wide receivers and Stetson Bennett, try to beat them. So it's going to be, I think, a fascinating matchup. And I think this next 4 weeks is going to be the best span of football in the SEC as far as drama is concerned that we've seen in a long time.
Well, Matt, before we go back, I want to ask you this. I felt like Missouri would have a great chance to win that game and do well because, again, 4-game winning streak, South Carolina. You're playing at home. You've got to be so careful about we're playing at home. We're playing at home. That's great. That other team's coming in there outside their comfort zone, hungry. They're more, they're looking around. They're more aware of their surroundings. You can get too comfortable thinking you have a home field advantage and not focus on you still got to play the game on the field. And Missouri finally got a win. That was a good win. That was the best win they've had all year. Should have beaten Auburn. Should have won the Georgia game. Should have won the Florida game. And Eli Drinkwitz is coaching for his coaching life. But that's what I'm talking about with Tennessee and Georgia, Matt. You look at that Georgia game against Missouri. There's something about that game, and Jimmy keeps going back to it, but it does matter. And you see some things that Georgia does in every game that are really good, and then there's some things that aren't so good. The fact they only have 9 sacks in 8 games, what does that tell you about? Maybe it's the way teams are playing against them. But you better be able to get 4 or 5 sacks against Hendon Hooker in Tennessee Saturday, Matt, or Tennessee might put 42, 49 points up. That sounds almost blasphemous to say that. But this is, like Tony Barnhart said on the show a couple of weeks ago after the Tennessee-Alabama game. Tennessee, Hendon Hooker, Josh Heupel, the coach, the offense that they run, it forces you to play every square inch of the football field, Matt, and that can get old in a 4-quarter game, can it?
No, it's tough, and I just want to make sure everyone's clear on my view on Tennessee. I think Tennessee's unbelievable, outstanding. I would not want to be a defensive coordinator against them right now. I think though physically, I do think Georgia has the ability. You look at Kirby's background as a former defensive back. I would imagine they're going to try to be a little bit bend not break philosophy. Let them get some yardage, nothing behind them, and try to keep them to more 3s than 7s. That's what I'm thinking. And then also you talk about Georgia's lack of maybe numbers on the defensive line this year. Is it possible some of that is health related too? I know they've had some injuries with some of their D linemen. Are they getting healthier? I don't know the answer to that question, but I will tell you, Stetson Bennett, a lot of his success throwing the ball is predicated on play pass. If you cannot run the ball against Tennessee, and credit to their defense, lately they've been lights out. That performance against Kentucky, though we can argue that Kentucky's not an offensive juggernaut, was special. So if Georgia can't run the ball at all, guys, it trickles down to their passing game too. And I think if Tennessee's defense can do a good job against the run, they could put some they could possibly have some opportunities for some turnovers against the passing game.
Yeah, and I look at Josh Heupel in Tennessee. They're different. That was very impressive what they did against Kentucky.
Yeah,
and there's a lot to be drawn from watching that game. How about those uniforms? The crowd, they're going crazy. I think Tennessee's going on the road, really hungry, and I don't see complacency with this team. They just don't let up. They just keep pounding on you. And as the game goes on, they've been beating on you for so long. As it wears on, you can't take anymore. And they don't stop. And it reminds me, Jimmy, a lot of Steve Spurrier's offenses at Florida. A lot of people talk about when you play that face guard technique. And I'm not a coach, and all these people that try and think I'm not. I'm just saying when you're in the defensive back is in the receiver's face when you're covering him, watch his eyes light up. Well, coaches and players are smarter than that. That we've known that forever. But Spurrier's offense, you would throw to spots on the field. Tennessee reminds me of that. They don't drop many passes, and they don't walk back with their heads hanging down to the huddle after a dropped ball or missed reception or whatever like that. They just keep coming at you. They're just relentless, but they've got a physical offensive line, and Rodney Garner's defensive line is starting to get that surge up the middle that a championship team has, Jimmy.
Yeah, and another thing that is really difficult about playing Tennessee involves the fact that they might give up an 80-yard, 10-play drive, but they can just counter that on the first play from scrimmage with the 75-yard bomb. And then it's really dispiriting, to the opposing team to, know that we worked so hard to execute a brilliant drive to take the lead, and then 15 seconds later we're tied. But I do believe, though, that Georgia is well aware of the fact that they can't afford this game from a scoring standpoint to get any higher than the upper 20s or lower 30s. They are not going to beat Tennessee in a shootout. And I know that Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp, they're going to be spending some late night hours getting ready to try to stop this offense.
Well, Matt, I think this Tennessee-Georgia game is a lot like a 5K race. You've got one guy that wins every race by 200 yards, but he gets to the regional championship, and there's a guy that's going to be right on his back heels. You find out it's a little harder when you got to work for it. And you may not like being pushed the entire time. Georgia is used to jumping on top of people and suffocating them with their great defense. I think Tennessee's going to approach this game, say, look, we're going to go blow for blow with you. And then you start saying, as I said before the season started, we all did, Stetson Bennett the fourth is going to be asked this year to do what he wasn't really asked to do last year, and that's go out and win 2 or 3 games. This is one such game where he's going to have to be able to go blow for blow with Hendon Hooker. And Tennessee's got multiple wide receivers. They've got so many weapons. Guys, you can't even, they're not household names yet. There's so many of them. Again, it reminds me a lot of the Steve Spurrier teams at Florida. And I think Frank Duffy talked about possibly, not that it is, but shades of that 2019 LSU team that beat 7 teams in the top 10 and won the national championship with Joe Burrow and Joe Brady as the passing game coordinator. There's a lot going on here, but this Tennessee team reminds me against Kentucky, they could have struggled. A lesser team would have struggled. They took care of business. We're going to talk more about it right after this quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
On this Monday edition of Sidelines, Rob Browne and Matt Dean all talking college football blitz. And, on Saturday morning's show, we talked about it, the passing of a legend, Georgia football legendary coach, Vince Dooley. What a great one. He's just, look up the definition of a Southern gentleman. His picture's right there along with Shug Jordan. Got to love him. And he built a legacy there. Irk Russell, junkyard dog defense. So, hopefully we're going to have some of the Georgia folks that we have on be able to reflect on his life and career and what he means to Georgia and will always mean to Georgia. But a legend, a man's man, United States Marine, proud native of Mobile, Alabama, Auburn grad, his wife Barbara, also Auburn grad. But he is a dog forever. As they say, Lauren Smith says a DGD, damn good dog. Matt, want to talk now about some of the other things going on in the SEC, LSU and Bama. I mean, that's coming up Saturday as well. What a day. Is there going to be some couch time, some cold beers drank, people watching all this college football? You got Georgia, Tennessee, 3:30 Eastern, and then Alabama and LSU. How much fun is it going to be just a slug on the couch or watching TV and just eating and drinking and hanging out this weekend? Is it going to be a 5-star weekend?
It is for me because I don't have to work football this Saturday. My team's away. I'm not working. This past weekend, I was at Rhodes from 8:30 a.m. to about 4:30 p.m. and we had rain kind of in the middle of our homecoming parade. But,
yeah.
What an unbelievable backto-back doubleheader. Jimmy, you were talking earlier about kind of LSU and how they've kind of, I mean, this game with Bama, I mean, if we had thought this 4 weeks ago, we probably didn't thought about this. But right now, it's no for sure thing that Bama wins this game, is it?
No, it's not. And I'll tell you what, LSU's been looking at that Tennessee Alabama tape because in that game, defensively, Alabama was extremely passive, even though, like I said, the total yardage between the two teams was 571 to 569. But I really thought at the end, the difference was that Tennessee kept trying to make adjustments. They kept lining up their players in different spots on every play. They tried blitzing, and it actually worked on that final possession on third down when Bryce had to get rid of the ball early. Whereas Alabama was very passive. They didn't blitz really at all, and it made Will Anderson a non-factor in the game. And then when you look at LSU's last two games, in which Jalen Daniels has absolutely been going through progressions that we did not see that the first 6 games. If that primary receiver was covered, he was just going to tuck it down and run. And it started in that Florida game where he was waiting until his third or fourth option got open and made the throw, and he was really comfortable doing it. And at the same time, he's really dangerous running. If he does escape a pressure and sees open field, it can really be a problem for Bama. So again, they absolutely going to have their hands full. And also, Bama wasn't going to get an 11 o'clock a kickoff in Baton Rouge like Tennessee did, or an afternoon kickoff. They're getting the full-blown treatment. 7 p.m., the only thing surprising was it's a few days after Halloween, not the 2 days leading up to Halloween. So, but it's going to be a tremendous game. But for some reason, Alabama has a tremendous history of success in Baton Rouge. They've had 2 weeks to get ready to where Bryce, again, is not taking any hits. He's allowed to have, getting those 6 to 8 hours a day of treatment on that AC joint. So I think he'll be probably, 100% for this game. But Alabama, I think people have to remember, they don't have the receivers they've had the last 10 years. These guys are young. You don't have 3 or 4 NFL receivers, like they've had in the same unit in the past. So it's going to be a real challenge for those guys. And I think you're going to see 2 unbelievable games.
Well, you know what, Jimmy? You just hit on it. In the past few years, Alabama's had stud running backs, but the playmaker, Jamison Williams, John Mechie III at wide receiver, by the end of the national championship game against Georgia, they were so beat up. Obviously Mechie and Williams were not even playing. They were injured. So you look at this game, your star player, skill player is Jahmyr Gibbs, a running back, and you don't have a great offensive line. So Matt, you be the coach, you be, Brian Kelly, you say, how are we going to, what's your game plan? Because he ain't going to tell us, and I wouldn't expect him to, but what do? You try to because Jahmyr Gibbs is really good at catching balls out of the backfield. He's a great running back, great skill player. Without a great offensive line, though, you look in that Tennessee-Alabama game, I was up there watching Bryce Young. He was the best player on the field on either team. No disrespect to Hendon Hooker, but, man, without Bryce Young, Alabama loses by 2 or 3 touchdowns probably. He's that good. What do you do if you're Brian Kelly, though? I agree. I think Bryce Young's going to be 100% or 99%. What are you going to do to slow down Alabama? I don't think you shut them down, but LSU's got to do something close to that to get the win, because it's going to be a full 60.
Well, one of the things I think you have to do is avoid the start you had against Tennessee. I mean, people didn't even get in their seats. You fumbled the kickoff, and then the punt return almost went for a touchdown. It's 10-0 before the game even started. So you're going to have to be either equal or win the turnover battle. To me, that's number one. When we talked about Georgia, Missouri earlier, guys, one thing that's forgotten in that game is Georgia put the ball on the ground twice. Missouri was able to move the chains, keep Georgia off the field, and led that game. Jimmy, if I'm not mistaken, for the last 5 minutes of the game, they led that game the entirety. So I think the night game helps LSU. The fan base is going to be rocking, but you cannot give up the ball and give up points or field position to Bryce Young. I also agree, Jimmy. I think that the Daniels young man has improved immensely. You look at his progressions of how he's gotten better. I think they were down so early against Tennessee that they were forced to change their game plan a little bit. and got throw heavy. But you got to stay balanced, guys. I know this is an old football cliche, but you're going to have to be able to keep Alabama's offense off the field, because I'll tell you this, Tennessee beat Alabama, but Alabama moved the field. Bryce Young was phenomenal, and Bryce Young, since that injury, the only reason the game was a game against A&M was because Bryce Young didn't play. That's the bottom line. Tennessee, I mean, A&M played their tails off, but Bryce Young means everything to that offense. I think if I'm Brian Kelly, I honestly am kind of leaning towards, really trying to run more than I have in the past. And I may have some different packages for my quarterback, maybe even some more quarterback draw options to try to, watch the pro football analogy. Like everybody says with Micah Parsons, the Dallas Cowboys, the way to run the ball against Dallas, if you can, is to run at Micah, not away from him. And I think if you look at some things with Will Anderson, I think you unfortunately have to try to do the same thing, because when you go away from him, it gives him more freedom of movement to make plays. So at 6-2, with the coaching job that Brian Kelly's done right now, the fact of the matter is we didn't think that this game was going to be relevant a month ago for LSU. It is. I like their chances. If they don't turn the ball over against Tennessee, guys, they turn it over real early, and the game was out of hand by the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, it was 28-10 Tennessee over Alabama, and all of a sudden that game's tied up. Alabama can strike quickly.
They can.
And Brett, I agree with you about Jaden Daniels. They go on the road and win at Auburn. Of course, I don't know what that really means. Only 5 yards passing in the second half, 100 total for the game. Brian Kelly is proving what a great coach he is. Look how calm he is. He'll get on you, but I love his demeanor. I think he's an excellent coach. He's cool. He's the right guy at the right time for LSU. They couldn't, I don't think how are you going to do better than the guy who's got the second most wins of any college football coach in America behind Nick Saban, 4 or 5 games behind him. And now they're going to play. You've got a matchup Saturday, the 2 winningest coaches in America, active college football coaches. When's the last time that happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think too that you're going to see LSU do what A&M did last year, and a lot in this game. And then you saw Auburn do it in the Iron Bowl. You saw Georgia do it in the national championship game. And that's a blitz heavy scheme to put pressure on Bryce Young, because Alabama's offensive line over the last year now has had problems dealing with those blitz heavy schemes. And if you can force Bryce to throw the ball sooner than he wants to, it's going to be a problem. But defensively, I think one of the biggest developments Alabama's had that people maybe have overlooked was that Saban finally gave Eli Ricks his first start at corner last week, and he was sensational. I mean, it started from the first play of the game when he knocked down that a slant pattern, and the only pass completed against him was a perfectly executed back shoulder fade. But this guy is a shutdown corner. He's an NFL player, and I think it kind of makes Saban rethink his idea. What if a guy's not a great player in practice? I'm not going to play him in the game, but there's certain guys that are gamers. I mean, Sean Alexander wasn't a great practice player, and I don't think Rick's isn't looking forward to facing his former LSU teammates, and he's going to be looking to shut down those corners, but he makes them a completely different team in the secondary. And then Dallas Turner moving him into the inside linebacker position last against State. I mean, he was absolutely a monster out there. So I think Alabama's kind of stumbled into a couple of things defensively that can make them much better down the stretch. And it's just going to be a great matchup to watch.
Well, it is. And this time of year, you get into November, you're as good as you're going to be. And a lot of times everybody's talking about, Matt, the Georgia 49, Oregon 3.
Yeah.
Georgia 49, Oregon 3, over and over and over. Oregon hadn't played anybody since then. Hell, we don't know, but they're playing pretty good football. I don't know where they're going to be ranked, 6th, 7th. I think in 8 games, they've given up 2 sacks on the year. Got a pretty good offensive line. Dan Lanning is a guy that has got it going on in Oregon. And look at the people coming out of that Kirby coaching tree. That's pretty impressive too, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll say this about Oregon. You mentioned the fact that the BYU win early on we thought was really good until BYU has lost four in a row, obviously. So I give you that. But, right now the Pac-12 has what? Oregon 8, USC 9, I think UCLA 11, Utah 12. That's in the AP top 25, I believe. And I think Oregon State jumped into 24. And you can say, yeah, well, that's the Pac-12, whatever. I was at the game against UCLA, and Bo Nix was outstanding. And I also understand the argument. Yeah, he's not playing against SEC defenses. I get that, but he's still performing at a high level. So right now, if you're talking about Oregon, everyone was ready to, after the Georgia game, everyone's like, well, this is not a great hire. Let me tell you what, his last 7 weeks, including the bye week, 8 weeks, they have worked hard to get better every week. They've averaged over 40 points a game. They scored over 40 points a game every game, I think, since the Georgia game. Offensively, they're clicking. Defensively, they're getting better. I mean, they had an astounding number of missed tackles in the Georgia game. But one thing about that game, and I still saw optimism in the 49-3 loss, they moved the ball against Georgia. Bo had some problems in the red zone. The offense had some problems in the red zone. So there was still, even though you lose a game 49-3, they had over 300-plus total yards offense, and they moved the ball quite a bit against that Georgia defense. It was just a home game for Georgia, and they got off to a great start, and Stetson played outstanding. So the last few weeks of the Pac-12, I'll tell you this. I know we're not normally talking about the Pac-12 here. You're going to
look, this college football, man. We only got a couple of minutes, but let's talk about it.
I'm just telling you, Lincoln Riley has done a tremendous job with USC, okay? Mm-hmm. Chip Kelly, probably his best team he's had since he's been at UCLA, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Utah, we know how physical they are, even though they stubbed their toe badly week 1. It kind of hurt. I think the Georgia loss, the Oregon loss did not hurt the reputation as much as the Utah loss at Florida week 1. That's my opinion. And then finally, I think, Oregon State is 6-2. So I think the league has gotten better. I think maybe Oregon comes in around the 8th spot. That's what I'm guessing when this first playoff results. And then maybe, USC could be right there with them with UCLA. But it would take a lot of dominoes to fall for a Pac-12 team to be considered for the Final Four spot. A lot of dominoes would have to fall, but some of them are naturally in place. I mean, Ohio State has to play Michigan. Okay. Mm-hmm. Georgia plays Tennessee this week. And then Bama's got to play the winner of the SEC East, assuming they win the SEC West.
Yeah.
I mean, Ole Miss and LSU are still big time in play in that. So another team I give a lot of props to, no matter what you say, is Ole Miss last week. They had their first loss to LSU, and then they go into Aggie Land and find a way to win that football game. It was funny. I was listening to the fireman, Gordon Ford, earlier. He butchered Wegman's last name, didn't he? He called him Connor Wegman is going to be, hey, by the way, he is a legit 5-star quarterback. He is going to be a really good football player for the Aggies. Yeah. So I'm impressed with Ole Miss too.
Yeah, we're about out of time. And let me just say this, guys. Unbelievable show today. Matt, Jimmy, Doug, Gordon, the fireman. It's been a lot of fun. And I want to say this, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Go out and give to give. Don't give to get. A lot of great football to be played tomorrow night. College football playoff rankings are going to be released. We're going to be talking about this a lot. And listen, Matt, great college football conversation never should be preceded with an apology. We're talking about the Pac-12 because I love college football coast to coast and everywhere in between. And your knowledge, what you have, what Jimmy, what all of us have, it's all interrelated. What happens in the SEC has reverberations around the country. That's the way it is. That's what's so cool. Anyway, happy Halloween, everybody. Some schools give away NIL money like Halloween candy. Let's all go get some candy tonight. It's a great day. Happy Halloween. Go get scared. Go to a haunted house. Have a lot of fun. But anyway, check us out 680thefan.com, the podcast park, www.sidelines.live. May Veterinary Clinic since 1964, Tuscaloosa and Northport. Thanks so much. Take your dogs and cats to get good care. See you tomorrow, everybody. We're out of here.